My name is Happy Miller. And the night my son's blood type exposed my husband's lie, everyone in that hospital room looked at me like I had just become a stranger. It was 1:42 inches the morning. The emergency room smelled like antiseptic, rain, and fear. My 8-year-old son, Noah, was behind a set of double doors after an accident that should never have happened. Daniel, my husband, had taken him to a late charity event at his firm. Noah had begged to see the model train exhibit they had set up for the guests' children. Daniel had promised me he would watch him. Instead, somewhere between a phone call and a conversation Daniel later refused to explain, Noah slipped outside near the valet lane. A delivery bike came around the corner too fast. Noah fell, his head hit the pavement. There was blood on his jacket, blood on Daniel's sleeve, and blood under my fingernails because I had pressed my hand against the bandage in the ambulance, as if my palm alone could keep my child in this world. By the time we reached the hospital, Noah was conscious but pale, frightened, and shaking. Nurses moved fast. Allergies, medications, previous surgeries, blood type. Mother's blood type? A nurse asked. Oh, I said. O positive. She typed quickly, then glanced at Daniel. Father? Daniel did not answer right away. He was staring at the doors where they had taken Noah. I said, it should be in the file. Daniel is type B. The nurse checked the records from Daniel's last physical, the ones his family clinic had forwarded when Noah was admitted. Yes, she said. Father listed as B positive. Then the attending doctor came in. Her name tag read Dr. Lillian Hayes. She looked at the chart, then at me, then at Daniel. Noah's current blood test shows type A, she said. At first, I did not understand why the room changed. I only heard that Noah had blood, that they knew what it was, that they could treat him. Daniel's mother, Margaret, understood faster than I did. She had arrived 10 minutes after us, wearing a cream wool coat over her silk pajamas, her silver hair pinned perfectly as if emergencies were just another occasion to look superior. She had never liked me. She had tolerated me because Daniel chose me, then tolerated me more because I gave her a grandson. Or at least, that was what we all believed. Dr. Hayes spoke carefully. With an O mother and a B father, type A would be unusual enough that we should confirm the family history. There it was. A soft sentence. A medical sentence. No accusation, no raised voice. But Margaret seized it like a knife. She turned toward me slowly. Happy, she said, and my name sounded ugly in her mouth. Whose child is he? The nurse froze. Dr. Hayes's eyes shifted toward Margaret, then back to me, as if she wanted to pull the words out of the air before they landed. What? I whispered. Margaret stepped closer. Your blood is O. Daniel's blood is B. Noah is A. So I'll ask you again. Whose child is he? I looked at Daniel. That was the moment my life began to split open. Because Daniel did not look betrayed. He did not look shocked. He did not look like a husband who had just heard a possibility that his wife had given birth to another man's child. He looked afraid. Not heartbroken. Not furious. Afraid. Daniel, I said, my voice barely coming out. Say something. He rubbed a hand over his mouth. His wedding ring flashed under the hospital lights. This is not the time, he said. Not, my wife would never do that. Not, there must be another explanation. Not even, mother, stop. Just, this is not the time. I never cheated on you, I said to Daniel. I hated that I had to say it. I hated that my son was hurt, and I was standing in a hospital hallway defending my marriage like a criminal. Daniel looked at me then. For 1 second, his eyes softened. Not with love, with warning. Happy, he said quietly, don't make this worse. That sentence cut through the panic. A man who believes his wife betrayed him does not say, don't make this worse, as if she is about to open the wrong door. A man says that when he already knows what is behind it. Dr. Hayes cleared her throat gently. Right now, Noah is stable. We're running imaging. The blood type itself is not the emergency. But once he's safe, I recommend confirming records. Margaret did not listen. She looked me up and down. I always knew there was something too convenient about you. Convenient. That was what I had been to them. A quiet woman with no powerful family, no scandal, no demands. A wife who smiled through Margaret's insults, because Daniel always said, she just needs time. A mother who gave up sleep, work, friendships, and pieces of herself to raise a little boy, whose life now depended on the adults around him, not tearing each other apart. Noah needed me. So I swallowed every scream. I sat down in the plastic chair outside the treatment room and pressed both hands over my mouth. Before I tell you what the DNA test revealed, tell me this in the comments. If your own family accused you before hearing the truth, would you defend yourself immediately or stay quiet until you had proof? I stayed quiet. Not because I was weak. Because something in Daniel's face had just told me the accusation against me was not the real secret. Margaret kept pacing. She made calls. She used phrases like family crisis and legal clarity. Daniel stood near the vending machine, staring at nothing. Every few minutes, he checked his phone. Once, I saw a name flash on his screen before he turned it over. Evelyn. I had seen that name years ago. Not often. Not enough to prove anything. Just enough for a wife to remember the shape of it when the world starts falling apart. At 3:16 a.m., Dr. Hayes came back and told us Noah had a concussion, a deep laceration, and a fractured wrist, but he was going to live. I cried so hard my body folded. Daniel reached for my shoulder, and for the first time in 9 years, I stepped away from his hand. His fingers hung there between us. Margaret saw it and narrowed her eyes. "You don't get to act offended," she said. "Not now." I looked at her, then at Daniel. "My son is alive," I said. "That is the only reason I'm not answering you the way you deserve." Daniel flinched at the words, "my son." At the time, I thought he flinched because he doubted me. Now I know he flinched because I had spoken the truth in a language he had spent 8 years trying to control. That night, my son's blood did not prove I had betrayed my husband. It proved my husband had been hiding behind the wrong accusation for 8 years. 8 years earlier, when I gave birth, I woke up without a baby in my arms. That is the detail I spent almost a decade explaining away. People do that when they survive something terrible. They take the gaps and fill them with what they are told. They trust the people standing beside the hospital bed because the alternative is unbearable. You do not wake up from nearly dying and immediately suspect the man crying beside you is arranging your life like a crime scene. Back then, I loved Daniel with the kind of love that makes excuses sound like loyalty. Daniel came from old money, and Margaret treated wealth like proof of better blood. She rarely insulted me directly. She wrapped cruelty in advice, then Daniel softened it afterward with the same sentence. "She just needs time." Time became the thing I gave everyone. Then I got pregnant. For a few months, everything changed. Daniel became attentive again. He touched my stomach when he came home. He took photos of the nursery. He told me he had never been more certain of anything in his life. Margaret began visiting with lists. Which pediatrician, which hospital, which crib, which nanny agency. Though I told her I planned to be home with the baby. She did not ask what I wanted. She approved or disapproved as though my pregnancy were a family project, and I was merely the location. In my last trimester, Daniel started disappearing. He said it was work, emergency meetings, donor calls. His phone became a separate room he kept locked. Sometimes I woke at night and found him standing on the balcony, speaking so quietly the words dissolved into the dark. Once, I heard a woman's voice through the phone. Not enough to recognize. Just enough to know. When I asked, Daniel looked exhausted. "Her name is Evelyn," he said. "She used to consult for a client. She's unstable, happy. She calls people when she's spiraling. I'm trying to be kind without encouraging her. I was 8 months pregnant. My feet hurt. My back hurt. My heart wanted peace more than truth. So I believed him. The birth began during a storm. I remember rain striking the hospital window. I remember Daniel arguing with someone in the hall, his voice low and sharp. I remember Margaret's perfume before I saw her face. I remember a nurse saying my blood pressure was too high, then another nurse saying they needed the doctor now. After that, my memories came in pieces. White lights. A mask over my mouth. Someone saying, "Stay with us, happy." Pain like my body splitting open. Then a cry. I think there was a cry. For years, I told myself there had been a cry, because mothers are supposed to remember the first sound their child makes, but memory is not a recording. It is a room people can enter while you are sleeping, and rearrange. Somewhere in the fog, I heard a voice say, "She's very weak." I thought they were talking about me. Later, much later, I would learn they were not. When I woke properly, my mouth was dry, and my arms felt too heavy to lift. There was a tube in my hand. Daniel sat beside the bed with red eyes and a wrinkled shirt. Margaret stood near the window, arms crossed, looking less like a grandmother and more like a woman waiting for a decision to be announced. "My baby," I rasped. Daniel leaned forward immediately. "He's alive," he said. I blinked. "He?" Daniel smiled through tears. A boy. Noah. A boy. I looked toward Margaret. Something in her face tightened, then smoothed. I thought. My throat burned. I thought. Someone said. You were under medication, Daniel said quickly. You were in and out. The doctors said confusion is normal after what you went through. What happened? His fingers closed around mine, too tightly. You had complications, severe bleeding, infection concerns. They had to keep you monitored. Noah is in neonatal care. He's weak, but he's fighting. Can I see him? Not yet. Those two words became the gate between me and the truth. Not yet. The first day, they said I was too weak to leave the bed. The second day, they said Noah was too fragile. The third day, they said the NICU team wanted to avoid infection risk. The fourth day, Daniel showed me a photo on his phone. A tiny baby behind glass, tubes taped to his face, a blue cap pulled low on his forehead. That's him, Daniel said. That's Noah. I pressed my fingers to the screen and sobbed. For almost 2 weeks, I only saw the baby through photos Daniel brought me. Always through glass, always with tubes, always with someone telling me I was still too weak to visit. Every time I asked to go down myself, Daniel had an answer. The doctor just left. He's sleeping. They had to move him for observation. You need to heal first, Happy. He needs a strong mother. Margaret said it too. Don't be selfish. If you collapse, you won't help the baby. There were moments I almost questioned things. A nurse once came in with a chart and said, for the female infant, before Margaret cut her off with a look so sharp the woman stopped mid-sentence. Daniel later told me she had mixed up rooms. Another time, I woke from a fever dream convinced I had heard a baby girl crying. Daniel sat beside me and stroked my hair. You wanted a girl at first, he said softly. Maybe your mind is still holding on to that. Had I wanted a girl? I had wanted a child. I had wanted 10 fingers, 10 toes, a heartbeat, a future. But Daniel spoke with such sadness that I felt guilty for confusing him. On the 10th day after my delivery, Daniel came into my room, carrying a blanket bundle. No tubes. No glass. No nurses saying, wait. Just a small face, red and wrinkled, pressed into white cotton. Our boy came through, Daniel whispered. I reached for him with hands that trembled so hard I was afraid I might drop him. The baby made a tiny sound, not a cry, more like a complaint. I laughed and cried at the same time. Noah, I said. Daniel watched me say the name. Now I know what he was watching for. Not love. He knew I would love the baby. That was the one thing he counted on. He was watching to see if I would remember. I did not. I held Noah against my chest, and the world narrowed to his warm weight, his soft breathing, the impossible gratitude of having survived with a child in my arms. I did not know another child had already lived and died without ever touching me. I did not know my husband had signed papers while I slept. I did not know that 10 days after my body brought a daughter into the world, another woman had brought Daniel, a son. I only knew what they told me, that my baby had fought, that my baby had lived, that I should be grateful. And gratitude, when placed in the mouth of a woman recovering from trauma, can become a very effective lock. Noah became my entire world in the quiet, ordinary ways that never make it into family photo albums. I knew his cries, his fevers, his bedtime fears, and the blue dinosaur blanket he needed whenever thunder came. I knew how he breathed when he slept, how he hummed when he was trying not to cry, how he reached for my hand without looking because he trusted it would be there. From the outside, we looked like a good family. Daniel was handsome and steady. I was warm and devoted. Noah was bright, curious, gentle. Margaret posted photos from birthdays and school concerts with captions about legacy, bloodline, and the Miller name. Bloodline. I used to think it was just one of her old-fashioned words. There were signs, of course. But signs only become signs after the truth teaches you how to read them. Daniel controlled Noah's medical records from the beginning. He chose the pediatrician. He scheduled the appointments. He kept the files in a locked drawer in his study, saying it was better to keep important documents away from household chaos. When Noah was 3, I wanted to change doctors because the family clinic was 40 minutes away and the pediatrician spoke mostly to Daniel even when I was the one answering every question. Daniel said no. Noah had a complicated start. Dr. Brenner knows his history. I know his history too, I said. Daniel looked up from his laptop. Not all of it. I waited for him to explain. He didn't. When Noah was 5, His kindergarten required updated health forms. I asked Daniel for the immunization records, birth certificate, and blood type. I'll handle it, he said. I can fill out a school form. It's not about what you can do, Happy. I already have the file. That was Daniel's style. He rarely shouted. He corrected. He redirected. He made my questions sound like inefficiency. Once, while Noah colored at the kitchen table, I said, "What is his blood type, actually? I should know that." Daniel was rinsing a coffee cup. The cup slipped slightly in his hand and tapped the sink. "It's in his file. I know. I'm asking you." He dried his hand slowly. "Why does it matter?" "It doesn't. I just realized I don't know. Most people don't know their children's blood type unless there's an emergency." That was true enough to end the conversation. Truth often hides behind statements that are technically correct. Margaret had her own strange relationship with Noah. She adored him publicly and studied him privately. At family dinners, her eyes followed him with a tenderness that almost looked like grief. One afternoon, when Noah was 6, he ran into the garden wearing Daniel's old scarf like a superhero cape. He turned back and grinned at us from the lawn. Margaret whispered, "He has her face when he smiles." I looked at her. "Whose face?" She blinked, as if waking. "No one," she said. I was thinking of an old photograph. Of Daniel? Of course. But Daniel did not have Noah's smile. Daniel smiled like a man aware of being watched. Noah smiled with his whole face, unguarded and bright. Another sign came at the school gate. Noah was 7. It was late October. I was waiting near the fence when I noticed a woman across the street. She stood beside a maple tree, one hand pressed to her mouth, eyes fixed on the children. At first, I thought she was looking at someone else. Then Noah came out. The woman's face collapsed. There is no other way to say it. She did not cry prettily. She folded inward, as if seeing Noah had broken something she had spent years trying to hold together. I pulled Noah closer. "Do you know that woman?" I asked him. He shook his head, already talking about a science project. I looked back across the street. The woman was gone. That night, I told Daniel. His reaction was immediate. What did she look like? Brown hair. Thin. Maybe late 30s. She was crying. Daniel's face strained. Did she speak to Noah? No. Did she speak to you? No. Daniel, who is she? He walked to the window and looked out into the dark backyard. Her name is Evelyn. The name from his phone. The name from years ago. What was she doing at Noah's school? She's unstable, he said. I told you that. She had an obsession with me years ago. Sometimes people like that attach themselves to families. I felt a coldness spread through me. Attach themselves how? He turned around. His expression softened, and that was worse. Daniel's softness always arrived when he wanted me to stop thinking. Happy, listen to me. If you see her again, do not engage, do not be kind, do not try to understand. You have a good heart, and she could use that. I wanted to ask more. I should have asked more. But Noah came into the room then, holding a drawing of the 3 of us under a yellow sun. He had written Mom in huge letters above my head and Dad above Daniel's, with our hands connected by blue crayon. Look, Noah said. We're all together. Daniel took the drawing and smiled. I watched him look at our crayon family, and for 1 second, something like grief crossed his face. Then it was gone. Years later, I would understand that Daniel did not fear Evelyn because she was unstable. He feared her because she was the only person outside our house who knew there had been another version of Noah's beginning. Or at least, she knew half of it. And half a truth, kept alive long enough, can still become a match. Margaret demanded the paternity test before Noah had even been discharged. She did it in the hospital cafeteria, while I sat with a paper cup of coffee gone cold between my hands. Noah was upstairs sleeping under observation. His wrist was in a cast. There were stitches near his hairline. He had asked me twice whether he had done something wrong because Grandma looked angry. I told him no. Adults do terrible things around children, then wonder why children blame themselves. Margaret arrived with Daniel and a lawyer named Mr. Wexler, a narrow man with rimless glasses and the emotional warmth of a locked filing cabinet. I looked at Daniel, then at the lawyer, and felt the last layer of my marriage begin to peel away. You brought a lawyer to the hospital? I asked. Margaret sat across from me. We brought clarity. Daniel did not sit. He stood behind his mother's chair, hands in his pockets. Mr. Wexler opened a folder. Mrs. Miller, Given the blood type inconsistency raised by the attending physician, the family believes it would be prudent to establish paternity. The family, I repeated. Margaret's mouth tightened. Noah is a Miller. Noah is my son. If that were unquestionably true, Margaret said, we wouldn't be here. I looked at Daniel. Are you really going to let her do this? He looked tired. Not ashamed. Tired. As if my pain were an inconvenience that had lasted too long. I think a test will put this to rest, he said. That was the first time I saw the strategy. Daniel agreed too quickly because a paternity test was the one test he knew he could survive. At the time, I only understood the cruelty. I did not yet understand the confidence underneath it. You think I cheated on you? I asked. His jaw flexed. I think we need facts. I laughed once. It came out broken. Facts. After 8 years of marriage. After everything I went through to have him. After I nearly died. You need a lab to tell you whether I betrayed you? Margaret leaned forward. You nearly dying does not make you incapable of lying. Something in me went very still. There are moments when people say the kind of thing that cannot be apologized away, because it reveals the room they have kept you in all along. I signed the consent. Not because I owed them proof, because I knew I had not cheated, and because Noah deserved to be safe from Margaret's poison as quickly as possible. The test came back 3 days later. Daniel asked that we open it together at the house. I refused. I opened it in the parking lot of the hospital while Noah finished a follow-up scan, because I no longer trusted rooms Daniel arranged. The email loaded slowly. My hands were steady until I saw the line. Probability of paternity, 99.9998%. Daniel Miller is the biological father of Noah Miller. For 1 second, I felt vindicated. Then the feeling vanished. Because the result did not solve the problem, it made the problem impossible. If Daniel was Noah's biological father, and Daniel was blood type B, and I was blood type O, then Noah should not be type A. Unless something else was wrong. Unless I was not Noah's biological mother. The thought was so horrifying I pushed it away physically, like a hand against my chest. No. Noah had grown inside me. Noah had been the child I nearly died to bring into the world. Noah was the baby Daniel placed in my arms. Noah was my fevered toddler, my laughing preschooler, my boy with missing front teeth and dinosaur pajamas. No. When Daniel read the paternity result, he did not look relieved. He looked satisfied. Margaret, however, was shaken. Her face went pale, then tight, then furious in a new direction. There must be an error in the blood work, she said. Dr. Hayes, who had agreed to speak with me privately, reviewed the records and repeated gently that current blood typing was reliable, though mistakes in old family records could happen. Would you like to confirm your own blood type? She asked. I know mine, I said. I've donated blood. I'm O. And your husband's? His records say B. She was quiet for a moment. What are you not saying? I asked. Dr. Hayes chose her words carefully. A paternity test answers one question. It does not answer every biological question in a family. I understood then that she had seen the door before I did. The next day, I ordered a private maternity test. I did not tell Daniel. I took a cheek swab from Noah by turning it into a silly science game at the kitchen table. He laughed when the cotton touched the inside of his cheek. Are we doing spy stuff? He asked. Yes, I said, smiling so hard my face hurt. Spy stuff. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat on the floor beside his bed and cried without making sound. His cast rested on top of the blanket. Someone had drawn a crooked dinosaur on it at school. I whispered, "You're mine." I did not know whether I was praying or begging. Daniel found the receipt for the test 2 days later. He came into the laundry room holding the paper between 2 fingers. What is this? I looked at it, then at him. A question. His face changed. For the first time, Daniel looked truly afraid. Why would you do that? He asked. You're his mother. Then the test should not scare you. He stepped closer. Happy, you are not thinking clearly. The accident, my mother, the hospital. You're spiraling. I folded a towel slowly because I needed my hands to do something ordinary. Where is the baby I gave birth to? He stared at me. I had not planned to ask it so directly. The question came from somewhere deeper than thought. Don't, he said. One word. Not what do you mean? Not you gave birth to Noah. Just, don't. The result came on a rainy Thursday morning. Noah was at school. Daniel was at work. The house was silent. I opened the email at the kitchen island. Probability of maternity, 0%. No biological mother-child relationship supported. I read it once, then again, then my knees gave out. Noah was not my biological child. But my love did not disappear. That was the strangest part. The paper destroyed my history, but not my motherhood. I still knew the shape of his hand. I still knew how he liked his toast cut. I still knew he hummed when he was trying not to cry. No lab could erase the 8 years he had reached for me in the dark. What the paper destroyed was trust. It destroyed the day Daniel placed him in my arms. It destroyed you were confused from the medication. It destroyed every locked file, every avoided question, every warning about Evelyn. When Daniel came home, I was sitting at the dining table, with the printed result in front of me. He stopped in the doorway. He knew. I said, "If Noah is yours but not mine, then where is the baby I gave birth to?" Daniel closed his eyes. For a long time, he said nothing. Then he whispered, "You were dying, happy." My heart stopped. He opened his eyes again. I did what I thought was merciful. That was the first time my husband almost told the truth. And somehow, the almost was more cruel than another lie. Evelyn Carter lived 26 minutes away from the house where my son had learned to walk. That was the first thing that made me angry. Not the affair, not even the lie. The distance. 26 minutes. Daniel had not buried the truth in another country or another life. He had buried it 26 minutes away, and trusted my obedience to keep me from finding it. I found Evelyn through an old architecture firm directory. She worked part-time at a small community library. I waited outside until her shift ended. She came out wearing a dark green coat, carrying a canvas bag full of books. "Evelyn Carter?" I said. She turned. The moment she recognized me, she went white. "I didn't come to hurt you," I said quickly. Her eyes filled with panic. "I'm not allowed near him." I stopped. Not allowed. Those 2 words told me Daniel had written rules for both of us. "Near Noah?" I asked. She gripped the strap of her bag. "Daniel said if I tried again, he would file harassment charges. He said you would support it." My chest tightened. "I didn't even know who you were." Evelyn stared at me, confused and terrified. "I found out because of his blood type," I said. Something in her face broke. She looked around the parking lot, then lowered her voice. "What did Daniel tell you?" "That you were unstable. That you had an obsession with him. That I should stay away from you." A bitter laugh left her mouth, but there was no humor in it. "Of course he did." We sat in her car. Rain tapped lightly against the windshield. For a while, neither of us spoke. The air between us was crowded with a child. Finally, Evelyn said, "Is he kind?" I looked at her. "Noah?" She nodded, and tears slid down her cheeks before she could stop them. "Yes," I said, "he's kind." She pressed her hand over her mouth. "Does he still rub his left ear when he's tired?" The question hit me so hard I turned away. Because Noah did. He had done it since he was a baby. Evelyn knew something no stranger should know. "What happened?" I asked. She closed her eyes. "I met Daniel when he was already married to you." The words hurt, but not the way she expected. I had already been cut too deeply for jealousy to be the largest wound. "He told me your marriage was over," she said. "He said you were staying together because of his mother, because of appearances, because of the pregnancy." I was stupid enough to believe complicated meant temporary. She looked at me then. "I'm not proud of it." I did not absolve her. I did not comfort her. But I listened. "When I found out I was pregnant, he panicked. Then he changed. He started saying maybe this was a sign. Maybe he had been meant to have a son. He talked about leaving, then not leaving, then protecting everyone." "Did you know I was pregnant too?" I asked. "Yes," she whispered. "But Daniel said you knew about me. He said the baby changed nothing, because you and he were already finished." The cruelty of that lie was almost elegant. Daniel had made each of us believe the other woman had accepted her place. "When did you give birth?" I asked. Evelyn's voice grew thin. 10 days after you." 10 days. There it was. The missing bridge. "What is your blood type?" I asked. She blinked, startled. A positive. "Do you know your genotype?" "My doctor told me once, because of family history." Why? I closed my eyes. Happy O. Daniel. B. Likely BO. Evelyn. A. Noah. A. The blood had not lied. The people had. "Noah got A from you," I said. "And O from Daniel." Evelyn looked at me as if I had handed her both a miracle and a weapon. "He's really mine," she whispered. I did not answer immediately. Because yes, biologically, he was hers. But he was also the boy who called me Mom when thunder scared him. He was the boy whose lunch I packed, whose birthday cakes I burned and rebuilt, whose nightmares I kissed away. Motherhood had just become a room with two women standing in it, both wounded, both real. "What did Daniel do after you gave birth?" I asked. Evelyn looked out at the rain. "He came to the hospital with papers. He said you had lost your baby." My breath stopped. "He told you that?" She nodded. "He said you were unstable from grief. He said his mother's lawyers would make sure I was seen as unstable too if I fought him. I had no money. My father had just had a stroke. Daniel said the papers were temporary medical guardianship forms. Just until things calmed down. He said Noah would have access to the best doctors. He said if I loved my son, I would not let pride ruin his future." Her voice cracked. I signed, because I thought I was buying time. "What happened after?" "He let me see Noah twice from a distance. Then he said you had bonded with him, and that any disruption would hurt him. He said you knew everything, and hated me. He said if I came near your family, you would press charges with Margaret's support." The memory of Evelyn across the street returned, her face collapsing as Noah ran toward me. I had held my son closer, because Daniel told me she was dangerous. She had stayed away because Daniel told her I was. The brilliance of his cruelty was that neither of us had needed to be locked up, we only needed to be afraid of each other. "Did you know he told me Noah was mine?" I asked. Evelyn shook her head slowly. "No. He told me my baby survived." Her lips parted. "What?" "I was unconscious after delivery. He kept saying the baby was in NICU. For almost 2 weeks, I only saw photos. Then he brought Noah to me and said he had fought through." Evelyn began to cry again, but this time it was different. Not only for herself. "He gave you my son," she whispered, "and told me he was the child I almost died delivering." We sat there, two women in a fogged-up car, finally seeing the outline of the same monster from opposite sides. I expected hatred to rise between us. Instead, there was horror. Daniel had not chosen one woman over another. He had used both. Evelyn had given birth, and been told, love meant surrender. I had nearly died and been told gratitude meant silence. Noah had been turned into proof of Daniel's goodness. And somewhere beneath all of it was the question I still could not fully ask. What happened to the baby I delivered? Evelyn reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope, worn soft at the edges. "I kept copies," she said. "Not everything, but some. My father told me never to trust a man who brings legal papers to a hospital bed." Inside were forms with Daniel's signature, Margaret's name listed as witness on one page, and language that did not look temporary at all. Guardianship, medical decision-making, emergency placement, no explicit adoption, not yet, but enough power to remove Evelyn from the first days of her son's life. Enough to begin erasing her. "You need a lawyer," Evelyn said. "I need the birth records," I replied. Then, for the first time, we were not Daniel's wife and Daniel's mistress. We were two mothers standing at the edge of the hole he dug, and we were about to climb down together. The hospital resisted at first, not openly. Institutions rarely say no when they can say processing delay, archive request, or will need additional authorization. The records department told me 8-year-old neonatal files were stored off-site. Then they said there were inconsistencies that would take time to reconcile. Inconsistencies. I had begun to hate polite words. Dr. Lillian Hayes helped me understand which forms to request. "You're looking for the original delivery notes?" she said quietly. "Not just the discharge summary." "Why?" "Because summaries can be cleaned. Notes are harder to rewrite completely." Evelyn gave me copies of her paperwork. My lawyer, Clara Jensen, requested Daniel's family clinic records, the hospital records, and any forms signed during my incapacitation. The first file arrived in a padded envelope on a Tuesday. I placed it on the kitchen table and stared at it for almost an hour. Noah was at school. Daniel had moved into a hotel after I changed the locks under Clara's advice. Margaret had sent 3 emails using words like hysteria, confusion, and family privacy. I had not answered any of them. Finally, I opened the envelope. The first pages were familiar enough. My admission, high blood pressure, fetal distress, emergency intervention, hemorrhage, postoperative infection risk, sedation, transfer to monitored recovery. Then I saw the neonatal page. Sex, female. For a moment, the letters did not become words. Female. Not male. Not Noah. Female. I touched the page with 2 fingers, as if paper could bruise. There were measurements. Weight. Time of birth. APGAR scores. Notes written in tight medical language about respiratory distress, oxygen support, transfer to NICU. Then, a second set of notes. Condition guarded. Critical but stable. Family updated by father. Father signed consent. Father signed release. Father signed acknowledgement. Father signed. Father signed. Father signed. Daniel had been everywhere in those records. I had been nowhere, except as the body recovering in another room. There was no name. Only, female infant Miller. Not my daughter's name. Not even baby girl Miller. Female infant Miller. As if my daughter had been a form before she had been a life. My vision blurred. I kept reading because stopping would not save me. The records did not tell the story in the way families do. They recorded intervals, oxygen levels, interventions, timestamps. Notes about the mother's condition making contact, not advisable at this time. Notes about the father requesting limited disclosure until the mother stabilized. Limited disclosure. There was another polite phrase. My daughter survived long enough for Daniel to sign every paper, and not long enough for me to hold her. She had lived in a room below mine while I slept through fevers and medication and pain. She had existed in the same building, under the same storm-lit sky, with a bracelet around her tiny wrist that did not carry a name. Female infant Miller. The file included a copy of that bracelet. A scan strip. Small, grainy, almost nothing. But it was proof that she had been here. My daughter had not been a dream caused by anesthesia. She had not been a confusion. She had not been a word I misheard. She had been real. I pressed the copy to my chest and folded over it. There is a kind of grief that arrives late, and therefore arrives carrying shame. I grieved my daughter, but I also grieved the mother I would have been if someone had told me the truth. I grieved the goodbye I did not say, the cheek I did not kiss, the name I did not choose, the funeral I did not attend. I grieved 8 years of not knowing I was grieving. That evening, Clara came over and read the file with me. When she reached the page where Daniel requested limited disclosure, her mouth tightened. "This is not mercy," she said. "No," I whispered. "It's theft." The second file was Evelyn's. Her son, born 10 days after my daughter, male infant, blood type A. Mother, Evelyn Carter. Father field initially left blank, then amended in a later attached document with Daniel's name appearing in legal correspondence, but not on the public birth certificate. There were notes of a man identified as Daniel Miller requesting temporary guardianship discussions. There was a consultation with a private attorney linked to Margaret's foundation. Clara read the document twice. "He built 2 files," she said. "One to bury your child, one to acquire Evelyn's." I flinched at the word acquire. But it was the right word. Daniel had treated babies like outcomes. A lost daughter became a problem to conceal. A living son became a solution to install. On the 5th day, I went back to the hospital. Dr. Hayes met me near the memorial garden, a small courtyard tucked behind the older wing. It had stone benches, low hedges, and a wall with small metal leaves families could request if they wanted a marker. Some leaves had initials. Some had dates. Some had nothing engraved at all. "I don't know where she is," I said. Dr. Hayes's face softened. "The records indicate she was transferred to the hospital's infant loss program. There may not be a public marker, unless the family requested one." "The family," I said, meaning Daniel, meaning Margaret, meaning not me. I brought the only thing I had from before the birth. A small knitted blanket, pale cream with a yellow border. I had made it badly. One side was uneven. There was a dropped stitch near the corner. Daniel used to tease me gently about it. Now I was grateful it was imperfect. At least something about my daughter had been made by my hands. I sat on a bench and placed the blanket beside me. "I don't even know what you looked like," I whispered. "But I know you were mine." The wind moved through the hedges. I took out the copy of the hospital bracelet. Female infant Miller. No name, no photograph, no memory except the one Daniel tried to convince me was medication. I thought of the voice saying, "She's very weak." I thought of my body trying to rise and being told no. I thought of Daniel bringing me photos of a baby boy behind glass, while my daughter's bracelet existed somewhere in a file. They did not just take you from me, I whispered. They took the memory of you and made me thank them for another child. That was the sentence that changed me. Until then, part of me still wanted Daniel to explain it in a way that hurt less. Some corner of the old wife wanted to hear that he had panicked, that he had been broken too, that he had loved me clumsily and chosen wrong. But love does not erase a child. Love does not threaten one mother and sedate the truth from another. Love does not replace a funeral with a nursery and call it healing. When I left the hospital garden, I was not healed. I was not calm. But I was no longer confused. Daniel had not made one mistake. He had built a life out of decisions. And now I had the papers to prove it. Daniel chose his mother's house for the confrontation because Daniel always chose rooms that made him feel powerful. The Miller house sat on a hill behind iron gates. I had spent years in that dining room learning how to be small. That night, I walked in with Clara, Evelyn, and a folder of records. Daniel arrived with Mr. Wexler. Margaret was already there. Noah was not. I had left him with my friend Liza, who knew only that grown-up truth was being handled before it could reach a child in pieces sharp enough to cut him. Margaret looked at Evelyn as if she were something dragged in from the rain. "She has no place here," Margaret said. Evelyn's hands trembled, but she did not look away. "I had a place," she said quietly. "Your son took it." Daniel exhaled sharply. "This is exactly why I wanted lawyers present." "No," I said. "You wanted lawyers present because you thought fear would still work?" He turned to me. For the first time in days, I saw the version of Daniel I had married. Calm eyes, gentle voice. The man who could turn any room toward him by sounding reasonable. "Happy," he said. "I know you're in pain. I know the records were traumatic. But you're looking at this as if everyone was thinking clearly back then." No one was. I almost admired the performance. "No one?" I asked. He stepped closer, palms open. "You were dying. She was dying." He nodded toward Evelyn without saying her name. Evelyn was unstable. Noah needed a mother. You needed a reason to live. I made the only decision everyone else was too broken to make. There it was. Not an apology. A crown. Daniel was not asking forgiveness for what he had done. He was asking us to recognize his authority to have done it. I opened the folder. "No," I said. "You made a lie and called it mercy." The room went silent. I placed the first document on the table. Noah's blood type is A. Mine is O. Daniel's is B. Dr. Hayes explained the issue clearly. With an O mother and a B father, type A is not consistent with the family history. Margaret swallowed. I placed the second document. Daniel agreed to the paternity test because it was the one test he knew he could survive. Daniel is Noah's biological father. Daniel looked at Clara. "This is private medical information," Clara replied. "You lost the right to hide behind privacy when you used medical information to mislead two mothers." I placed the third document down. My maternity test. I am not Noah's biological mother. Even though I already knew it, saying it aloud in that room made something inside me tear again. Evelyn lowered her head. I kept going. Evelyn's blood type is A. Her genotype is AA. Daniel is B, but he carries O. Noah is A, because he received A from Evelyn and O from Daniel. That is the truth Daniel hoped no one would ever line up correctly. Mr. Wexler adjusted his glasses. Genetic interpretations can be complicated. Clara looked at him. Not this one. I placed the fourth document on the table. My delivery record. I gave birth to a girl. Margaret closed her eyes. There it was. The first crack. You knew, I said to her. She did not answer. I placed the fifth document. She was taken to NICU while I was unconscious and recovering from complications. I placed the sixth. She died before I was ever allowed to hold her. Evelyn began crying silently. I placed the copied bracelet on top of the stack. She had no name on paper. Only this. Female infant Miller. Margaret made a small sound. I turned to her. You looked at me for 8 years while I held Noah and thanked God he survived. You watched me celebrate birthdays for a child you knew was not the one I delivered. You let me sit at your Thanksgiving table while you gave speeches about family blood. You knew my daughter existed, and you let her become paperwork. Margaret's lips shook. We thought? She stopped. You thought what? She looked at Daniel. Then back at me. We thought giving you Noah would keep you alive. Evelyn stood so suddenly her chair scraped the floor. You gave her my son? Margaret flinched. Evelyn's voice was low, but it shook with years of swallowed screams. You people talk like children are medicine. Like one baby can be prescribed for one woman and removed from another, because your family decided who deserved what. Daniel snapped. Evelyn, you were in no position to raise him. You told me the papers were temporary. You had no support. You threatened me. I protected Noah. Evelyn stepped closer to the table. You didn't save my son. You stole his first mother, then used his second one. Daniel's face hardened. For a second, the gentle husband disappeared, and I saw the man underneath, the one who had stood beside hospital beds with papers, the one who had measured women by their weakness and called it opportunity. He turned to me again. And what now, Happy? You want to destroy Noah's life because you found out biology is complicated? You are his mother. You said so yourself. You loved him. I gave you that. I felt the room tilt. I gave you that, as if motherhood were a gift he had bestowed. As if Noah were a replacement part he had installed. As if love born from deception belonged to the deceiver. I stepped closer to him. You gave me nothing, I said. Noah gave me motherhood every time he reached for me. I gave him love every day after you placed him in my arms. But you stole the truth from all of us. Daniel's jaw clenched. If you take this public, you will hurt him. No, I said. Your lie will hurt him. My job is to make sure the truth reaches him gently enough to survive. Margaret began to cry then. Quietly at first, then with the kind of trembling that made her look old for the first time. I loved him, she said. I looked at her. You loved owning him. She shook her head. No, you loved the version of him that protected Daniel. You loved the grandson who let you pretend nothing had happened. Did you ever love him enough to tell the truth? She had no answer. That was answer enough. Then the front door opened. For one unbearable second, no one moved. Noah stood in the hallway. Liza was behind him, pale and apologetic, her phone in her hand. I'm sorry. He heard Daniel left something for him here, and insisted. I thought. Noah looked from me to Daniel to Evelyn to the papers on the table. He was still wearing his cast. Someone at school had drawn another dinosaur on it. Mom, he said. All the adults who had been so certain of their rights fell silent before one frightened child. I moved toward him slowly. Noah, sweetheart. He looked at Evelyn. Something in his face shifted, some instinct deeper than knowledge. Who is she? Daniel stepped forward. Noah. This is not. Stop, I said. My voice came out sharper than I meant, and Noah flinched. I softened immediately and knelt in front of him. This is a grown-up conversation that you should not have had to walk into, I said. And I am sorry. His eyes filled. Did I do something? No. Never. Grandma said. He swallowed. At the hospital, she said maybe I wasn't yours. The room broke around that sentence. I took his hands. You are my son, but... He looked at the papers. Am I still yours? He whispered. I pulled him into my arms. You are my son because I loved you every day after they placed you in my arms. You are my son because I know how you breathe when you're asleep, because I know you hate peas unless they're mixed into rice, because I know you pretend not to cry when movies have dogs in them. Nothing about your blood changes the bedtime stories, the school mornings, the fevers, the birthdays, or the way you reached for me when you were scared. His small body shook against mine. But loving you, I said softly, does not mean protecting the lie that hurt all of us. He pulled back just enough to look at Evelyn. Is she? Evelyn covered her mouth with both hands. I looked at her, then at Noah. She is someone who loved you before she was allowed to know you were safe. Noah did not understand. Not fully. He was 8. No child should have to understand the architecture of adult betrayal in one night. But he understood pain. He looked at Daniel. Dad? Daniel's face crumpled in a way I had once dreamed of seeing, back when I thought remorse could save us. Noah, he said. I did everything for you. Noah stepped closer to me. It was a small movement, a child choosing the body that had always held him safely. But it changed the room more than any document had. Daniel saw it. So did Margaret. So did Evelyn. And I realized then that the truth was not going to destroy my son. Daniel's fear was simpler than that. The truth was going to destroy his ownership of us. The divorce papers were filed 6 days later. The public aftermath came in pieces. Lawyers sent letters. The hospital opened an internal review. Daniel's family clinic suddenly became interested in phrases like documentation irregularities. Margaret stopped posting family photos. Daniel's firm placed him on leave after Clara's filings raised questions about coercion, medical fraud, and guardianship manipulation. But the real aftermath was quieter. It was Noah standing in the hallway at night, asking if I would still make pancakes on Saturday. It was Evelyn sitting in her car outside a therapist's office, too nervous to come in because she did not know whether Noah would hate her. It was me finding one of Daniel's shirts in the back of the closet and realizing I no longer missed the man who had worn it. I only missed the version of my life I had been trying to believe in. Daniel called constantly at first. I did not answer. Then he sent messages. You're letting Clara turn this into something ugly. Noah needs stability. My mother is devastated. We can still handle this privately. Then, finally, you know I loved you. That one made me sit down. Because maybe he did, in some damaged, self-serving way. Maybe Daniel had enjoyed being loved by a woman who trusted him enough not to question locked drawers and missing records. But love without truth is not love. It is possession with better lighting. Margaret asked to see Noah 2 weeks after the confrontation. I agreed to meet her alone first. She arrived at a small cafe wearing black, as if someone had died recently and not 8 years ago. I want to apologize, she said. I waited. She looked down at her hands. I should have told you. Yes. I thought Daniel was handling something impossible. No. He was creating something unforgivable. Her mouth trembled. I loved Noah from the moment I saw him. And my daughter? Margaret closed her eyes. I did not say the words to be cruel. I said them because the unnamed child deserved to occupy space in Margaret's guilt. I didn't let myself think of her, Margaret whispered. That was the problem. She wiped one tear, carefully, as if even grief had etiquette. Can I see him? Not yet. Pain flashed across her face. You do not get to use the word love until you can say the word truth. If you want any place in Noah's life, you will not call this mercy. You will not say you saved me. You will not say Daniel made a hard choice. You will say what happened, in age-appropriate language, with a therapist present, when the time is right. And if you ever make Noah responsible for your guilt, you will lose access to him completely. For once, Margaret did not correct my tone. She nodded. It was not forgiveness. It was a boundary. Evelyn's place in Noah's life began slowly. The first meeting was in a therapist's office. Noah sat beside me, pressed against my arm. Evelyn sat across from us, holding a small photo album. Clara had advised her to bring only if Noah asked. He did not ask at first. He stared at her shoes. Evelyn did not push. That mattered. She said, "Hi Noah, I'm Evelyn." He nodded. "I like your cast," she said. He looked at the dinosaurs drawn on it. "It's almost coming off." "That's good." Silence. Then Noah asked, "Do you like trains?" Evelyn's face changed. She knew the importance of the question somehow. "I do," she said. "Especially old ones." Noah looked up. "Me too." That was the beginning. Not a movie moment. Not a rush into arms. Not instant healing dressed up as destiny. Just a boy asking a safe question, and a woman answering, without trying to take more than he offered. Afterward, in the parking lot, Evelyn stood several feet away from me. "Thank you," she said. I shook my head. "Don't thank me for not erasing you." Her eyes filled. "I don't want to take him from you. I know, and I did know. Not because trust had become easy, but because Evelyn had every reason to be selfish and had chosen not to be. I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "Neither do I." For the first time, we both almost smiled. That became our strange alliance. Not friendship, not yet. Maybe not ever in the simple way people like to imagine. But a shared promise. Noah would not be turned into territory again. We told him the truth in pieces. First, that adults had made serious mistakes when he was a baby. Then, that Daniel had lied about parts of his birth. Then, that Evelyn had given birth to him. But I had raised him. And both things could be true without one canceling the other. He cried. He got angry. He refused to speak to Daniel for weeks. He asked if his birthday was real. That question nearly broke me. I told him, "The day we celebrated was the day I was told you were mine. We can keep it if you want. And when you're ready, we can also learn the real day you were born. You are allowed to have both truths." He thought about that for a long time. "Can I have 2 cakes?" I laughed and cried at the same time. "Yes," I said. "You can have 2 cakes." 3 months after the truth came out, I took Noah to the hospital memorial garden. I brought the cream blanket with the yellow border. Noah brought a small wooden train from his collection. an older one, chipped at the corner, with one wheel that stuck. Are we giving it to her? He asked. If you want to. He held it carefully. She was your baby? He asked. Yes. And she died? Yes. And then Dad brought me? I took a breath. Yes. He looked at the blanket. Would she have hated me? The question entered me like a blade. I knelt in front of him. No, I said. She would have known you were innocent. His chin trembled. What if you loved her more? I didn't get the chance to love her the way I wanted, I said. But love is not a cup that runs out, Noah. Loving you did not take love from her, and knowing about her does not take love from you. He leaned into me. We placed the train beside the blanket. There was no grave with her name, no stone, no inscription that said daughter, beloved, missed. There was only the truth we carried there ourselves. Evelyn came too, but she stayed near the entrance until Noah noticed her. He looked at me. I nodded. He waved her over. She walked slowly, as if every step required permission. The three of us stood together in front of a memory Daniel had tried to erase. We did not look like a perfect family. We looked like what was left after a perfect lie collapsed. And for the first time, what was left felt honest. I do not regret knowing. The truth gave my daughter back her existence, gave Evelyn back her place, gave Noah a life no longer built around Daniel's fear, and gave me back myself. My name is Happy, and for years, I thought that meant I had to be grateful for whatever life handed me. I thought it meant smoothing pain into politeness, swallowing questions, forgiving silence because Daniel called it protection. Now I know happiness is not the absence of grief. Sometimes happiness is standing in a hospital garden with a son who is yours by love, beside a woman who is his by blood, mourning a daughter no one let you hold, and realizing no one in that garden is lying anymore. My son's blood type exposed the lie my husband buried for years. It did not prove I betrayed him. It proved he had stolen my grief, rewritten my motherhood, and hidden another woman's child inside my arms. But blood only revealed the lie. Love decided what survived it. If this story stayed with you, stay with us.